Hello friends, and welcome to another lesson. Here we are going to learn how waste accumulates in the body. You see, my customers in their 50s and 60s used to ask me why they become chronically ill in the second part of their lives. My answer was always the same, without any reference to the disease itself. There is an accumulation of waste in your body, and most likely because of it. There is predominant importance to understand how accumulation of waste in the body causes many chronic diseases. Anyhow, I find it appropriate to explain what are the main reasons for waste accumulation in the body. In order to understand it, I must first elaborate a little bit about the human body. Science discovered that the human body has over 30 trillion human cells, but in our body there are many different species of bacteria who play complex role that most of them are not yet understood by science. Those tiny creatures, bacteria and germs, on one hand feed on the food we eat, and on the other hand protect us from the hostile environment in which we live. In order to understand how the body works, we must assume that the body is a perfect ecosystem powered by air, water, and food. And the law of nature apply to it as to everything that needs air, water, and food to maintain life. One of the laws is the law of nutrition, which says if it's alive, it must be fed, and if it feeds, it must extract waste. The law applies to all forms of life, from bacteria and viruses to birds, fish, reptiles, and mammals. Drinking water enriched with addictive and flavorful chemicals, eating food that has stripped from its nature's giving nutrients, and on top of that, consuming chemical-based medication and dietary supplements, together they form the waste in the body. Just keep in mind that people who lived only 100 years ago didn't have those impurities in their diet or in their life. The accumulation of waste in our body is a perfect reflection of the way we treat nature. After World War II, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we polluted the air and nature in every way possible. We were so naive to think that nature could take care of the man-made pollution. The lawmaker thought the industrial pollution accumulates below the surface and no one noticed it. Well, not so happened. After several decades of uncontrollable pollution, there is a problem in the ozone layer that is supposed to protect us. Another classic example comes from my previous residence in the state of Michigan. You see, before the 1960s, many lakes had small cottages and cabins where people bought them as a second property investment and used to drive there from Detroit for summer and winter vacations. But in the 1970s and 80s, when the suburbs began to develop, the small cabin and cottages were replaced by large houses with manicured lawns, motorboats, and jet skis attached to the docks. Now, those homes are occupied year-round, and the result is pollution of the lakes from septic tanks, fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides, which are sprayed on the lawns and gardens. Now, those chemicals are seeping into the lakes. The accumulation of pollutants in the lakes interfered with the lake's ecosystem. The same applies to the ecosystem of the body. When we keep polluting it with the air we breathe, with what we drink and eat, over the years, the accumulation of pollutants reaches the point where the body or a specific organ cannot handle the overflow of waste. At that point, we experience symptoms of acute or chronic disease. What we consume is only one step towards disturbing the ecosystem balance in the body. Another step is our thoughts. You see, it is normal to have positive and negative thoughts, but for many of us, negative thoughts are more common than the positive. We tend to be judgmental towards ourselves and others. It's easier to hate than to love, and we buying satisfaction instead of creating them. All this creates one thing that is common to many of us: low immunity, thus chronic and incurable diseases. So, where does the waste accumulate? It accumulates in all major organs. What we breathe affects the lungs and our well-being. What we drink affects the kidneys, liver, heart, and the blood. What we eat and take into our mouth, which is food, medication, and supplements, affects the digestive system, the heart, liver, spleen, pancreas, blood, and the brain. Any disease is actually a blockage of energy, which means the flow of energy in and out of the cells, tissues, organs, and systems of the body is interrupted. Each and every one of us has weaknesses in a certain organs. At first, an acute disease appears in the organ which is most affected. If we fail to restore the flow of energy, then the acute disease appears more time until it turns chronic. That's when the doctor offers you a miracle drug that eliminates the symptoms. Of course, those drugs are not able to cure chronic diseases, but they can hide the symptoms so you can keep living the same lifestyle that created the problem in the first place. Each one of those medicinal drugs is a poison to the body. Therefore, on the manufacturer's instructions page attached to the drug, there are always warning signs and a list of side effects. All the side effects, without exceptions, affect organ or system of waste extraction from the body: the liver, kidneys, skin, and the digestive system. Now that you understand how acute and chronic diseases start, I want you to know that there are only two reasons that causes the formation of chronic diseases, and I'm sure you would like to know about them. Please don't ignore the message and don't be lazy to watch this super important lesson. I will see you there very soon. Goodbye.